Can you hear me? Okay. So let's see. First, we're going to do a roll call, and I want to make sure I get everybody correct. We have Sharonda here, Vicky here, Allie here, Gregory here, myself, Christina, and Mike here, including Cher, our council, or Cher, our executive director, and Bob and David again. Excellent. We proofed the meeting, was sent out. So the next point, I'm going to sort of interject here because this is my first time doing this, and we have some of our previous fearless leader here in the audience. And I just wanted to first give everyone an opportunity to introduce themselves, their background, where they're coming from. We have a lot of new board members here. Gregory and I are the two older board members. Go through just a few items with the IDA, and then ask Bob and Cher and David to give us a background of where we stand with all of our projects. So my name is Christina. I live on Grand Street. I have almost lived here for 20 years. I professionally am in the business of real estate development and management. And yes, I have 3 dogs. Have sat on the IDA since 2019. So this is 6 years for me.
I'm Gregory Nato. I'm also a resident here in Newburgh on Grand Street. I'm director of retail branding. I'm here on the IDA, trying to bring the aesthetic of the projects, increasing our tax revenues in the city and increasing jobs.
I'm Allie Church. I'm the Director of Planning and Development for the City of Newburgh. I've been a city resident for about 10 years and been in this position about 10 years, and I'm happy to join the board from kind of, the another side, not the other side, but I so often just do the planning and seeker side of things. So to see, especially projects that we've seen, the planning departments, up to a year ago, to see them finally come to the end, it's great. So thank you for having us.
I'm Vicky Anna Demora. I'm the city collector. I've been with the city of Newburgh for going on 18 years. I am also a city resident. I've been in Newburgh all my life, and I'm just happy to see what projects the city has going.
Good evening. I'm Sharonda Powell. I am a city of Newburgh resident all my life. I've been working for the city of Newburgh for 2 years now. I just recently got into a new role, deputy city clerk. I came from upstairs, the comptroller's finance department. Just looking to kind of piggyback on Vicky, see what projects, what developments we got for our city that's going to help our city, help build our city, and just to learn more about our city and how it's developing.
Hi, I'm Mike Neppel. I'm the Chief of Staff for the city. I'm a 5th generation Newburgher who moved away for 20 years to work in state government and politics for a couple governors and attorney general, state senate, ran a couple political campaigns here and there. Then moved into advocacy, worked for the State Library Association, the Hudson Gateway Association of Realtors, before landing here at the city. I couldn't imagine a more fulfilling job, and I'm really excited to be on the IDA.
Wonderful. Okay, so I will start with the mission of the IDA, and then we will move to some of your questions about projects and where we stand. The mission of the City of Newburgh Industrial Development Agency is to help attract and contribute to Newburgh's job opportunities, a diverse and net positive tax base to provide long-term economic prosperity and sustainability, and advance the general welfare and standard of living for the city and its residents through the promotion, development, encouragement, and assistance of commercial technology, tourism initiatives, recreational facilities, warehousing, manufacturing, and industrial facilities, utilizing green practices and adaptive reuse where available. I will pass this over to Bob and to Cher if you guys want to go through a little bit of history. We have quite a list of projects that are underway and that are about to be coming, and I think it's worth noting where we are with all of these projects.
No? Go.
I can start. So just to go over a few of what we have going on here. We have FSH Newburgh Hotel. They were approved for a pilot in 2022, and they're still waiting on financing, so we might have something that we discuss about that later on tonight. 191 Washington Street, that was the pilot that was approved in 2023. They're still waiting on funding to be able to close on their finances. 104 Washington Street, their pilot was approved in 2021. And we should be hearing from him later on tonight with some updates on that project. Newburgh South Logistics Center, we're at the final stage of this project. The board has that up for review later on today to approve a pilot. We have held all the public hearings that we need to do. We've done a cost-benefit analysis and a test of reasonableness. We also have 1 Lafayette, a.k.a. 50-72 Liberty Street, who's also here, will be talking tonight. They've submitted their application and will be looking to discuss a public hearing resolution. The Shaw Building, which is still going through the cost-benefit analysis process, but they have also submitted their application. And then 5 Scobie Drive, which is an IDA-owned property, which we are in contract with for Scobie Industrial Partners. They are looking to buy the lot of land, and then they're also looking for a pilot. Anything else you would like to add?
No, just thank you for letting welcome us here tonight. Sharonda, I forgot, I didn't get a chance to introduce you, introduce myself to you, so I apologize for that. My name is Bob. For the new members of the board, my name is Bob McLaughlin. I'm a partner in the law firm of Whiteman, Osterman, and Hanna up in Albany. I've been representing the agency since 2018 and representing IDAs around the state, literally from one end of the state to the other for the past 40 years. My associate, David Kraft, is here tonight as well. He helps me on day-to-day matters with the agency and also pinch hits at board meetings when I'm unable to attend. I welcome the opportunity to answer any of your questions. The only thing that I would add to Cher's report on the outstanding projects, FSH Hotel, which is the 3 buildings down the road here, the board did approve an amendment to their closing documents back in May. They did approve, their attorney asked me to prepare those documents earlier this month, and those documents have gone out to the attorney for his review and comment, and I expect that within the next couple of weeks we'll finalize those documents and ask the IDA agency to sign those documents. On 5 Scobie Drive, there is a contract of sale that is going on more than 4 years. It was signed in July of 2020. The developer had to amend the brownfield cleanup agreement with DEC. That property is severely contaminated, but they have now finally, I believe, received approval from DEC on their cleanup plan, and they have asked now for financial assistance from the IDA. The only other item I wanted to mention was that I sent out to all the new board members a reference material by email. I do have printed copies with me if you want to take one with you, and I'm happy, David and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have along the way with respect to that reference material. Thank you.
Can you also, we have some outstanding bonds, and we also have the Armory project. Can you guys just update where we are?
So, as I understand it, there are 2 bond projects that are still outstanding. Do you remember?
Kenny and Belvedere. For Borning Kenny and Belvedere. Those are 2 projects that we have.
Both of those projects predate our representation, my representation of the IDA. IDAs routinely, 20, 30 years ago, issued bonds for projects. That practice really ceased in 2008 when the ability to do what's called civic facility projects, or essentially anything that has to do with supporting the municipality, was removed from the IDA statute. Many IDAs have now created local development corporations called capital resource corporations to issue bonds, but as far as I understand, the city has not done that, and the IDA has not issued bonds for close to 25 years now. With the Armory project, obviously you guys are familiar with where the Armory is. That project predated my arrival, and when I arrived, it was the subject of 2 state litigation with the J&G firm representing the agency. Our involvement, as I think Mike knows, was in connection with the drafting of a potential contract of sale to the city for the Armory building, and then also recommending some changes last December to the agency disposition policy that would allow that disposition transfer to occur.
Let's see, do we have chairman's report? I guess we can go through, if you want to start with share the appointment of officers and committees, we can do that. Before we get to the reports of minutes and the treasurers.
So currently we have 2 vice chairs. If you look at resolution number 1, there is an attachment in the back that has all of the positions and slates that we need to have filled. We need chairman, vice chairman, treasurer, and secretary. The governance committee needs to have 3 members, and then the audit finance committee needs to have 3 members. Currently, I think Gregory is still secretary?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, every year when we do this, I kind of forget how we do this, but
Is this required, Bob, to be determined because we have such a new slate of board members by the end of this board meeting, or is this something that we can mull over and decide at next meeting?
You certainly can defer to the next meeting. You're under the statute, you should do it annually,
okay.
And typically this agency would do it in December.
Yep.
So right now you can continue with just 2 vice chairs and a secretary, okay. But at a certain point, you really need to have a treasurer. Okay. Whether you have a chair and first vice chair, that's entirely up to you. The ABO and the reforms that occurred both in 2005 and 2009 did set up and recommend a committee structure. And so right now your committees consist of either 1 or no members. And the board is really supposed to, under those reforms that were done almost 20 years ago, the board is to act pursuant to those committees. So in essence, the committees do the day-to-day work and then report to the board and make recommendations to the board for the full board to then act upon. So in your case, under the ABO, you should have an audit committee, a finance committee, and a governance committee. The finance committee is pretty much self-explanatory. What are the finances of the agency? What are the investments? Are you getting the highest rate of return on your investments? And what are you using those finances for? The audit committee, you're obligated to do an annual audit that's due March 31st of every year. And so the audit committee would typically do the introductory meeting with your independent auditor, determine the audit scope, which the auditor puts into a letter to the board, and then make sure that, or ensure that the staff of the agency support the auditors while they're on site to make sure that they have all the information needed to conduct the audit and issue a report by the end of March. And then governance is really the day-to-day review, a quarterly review of how the agency is doing its housekeeping and day-to-day matters.
we should discuss as a board, but I would think that maybe we would want to defer this until we kind of all decide or get to know. I know in the past, Sherry, you have sent out a private email and asked people if they wanted to participate in certain boards and which boards.
In the past, I would send a poll and ask if anybody was considering being chair, considering any of these positions, and then we would kind of like figure out the voting process from there. Is that what we would do in this instance too?
Can I just ask a clarification?
Sure.
So other agencies and boards need a treasurer to sign checks? Are we able to pay bills? Sorry, just a
Yeah.
threshold.
That's a great question. So at the last special meeting in September, which you certainly can tonight amend, the board did pass a resolution because the former chair had indicated that he was going to resign. The agency did pass a resolution that allows the executive director to pay monthly invoices up to, I believe, $25,000 in total, provided that there is an existing contract, an existing relationship, and it's work in the ordinary course of business under that contract. So if it was something extraordinary that came in, that invoice could not be paid by the executive director. But if it's in the ordinary course, like, for example, there were several reports that were done for this meeting, if those invoices came in, and again, the total for the month was not more than $25,000, the executive director, under that September resolution, has the authority to sign.
Understood. Thank you.
Yep.
However, for our banking institution, we do require 2 signatures for all checks. So right now, Chrissy and Gregory have the ability to do that. I usually keep 4 signatures on file. So I would like to have at least 2 more of you, because that always ensures that we can continue to pay bills and what have you. So that was something that we kind of just did like in-house before. That wasn't right. So if any 2 persons wish to be that role, then we can also get that up and running after this board meeting, where then we can speak to the bank and then have your signatures on record as well.
Those are just board members. They don't necessarily have to be a certain committee meeting or something.
Correct. It was just any 2 board members. I need 2 more signatures to be able to sign checks.
I think it makes sense to me. I don't know if it makes sense to everybody else, but I think having a full slate of officers is probably best practice for agency governance. Certainly understand that for the committees, we probably want to take a beat and think about who wants to serve on what committee and what kind of interest folks have in those. I don't think we need to bog the meeting down in the appointment of officers at this point. I would entertain moving item 3 to new business after Resolution 2024-1021-05, if there's an appetite for that.
Sure. I'm fine with that. Is everybody else okay with that? I don't think we need a vote to do that.
No.
We're just gonna
That's just
defer.
administrative.
Perfect.
Okay. Let's see, reading and approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. Most of you were not here. This is just Gregory and I. How does that work? And assuming that most of the board can't vote on this because they
It's
weren't.
it's not a formal action of the agency, and so if the 2 of you, if everyone else wants to abstain, and the 2 of you say yay or nay, then the minutes are approved.
Okay.
And the new members should not vote because you were not here.
So you'll present the motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, which was,
Yeah, what was the
I was
date on
away,
that? Oh, so you,
September 10th of 2024.
was this our special meeting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were there for the special meeting?
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems like an eternity ago.
I will second. All in favor?
Aye.
Is the 2 of us. All abstaining? And all opposed? Okay. For Adriana's benefit, just say your name when you're either firsting, seconding, or abstaining or something so that we have it for the voice record and so she can put it in the minutes. So for the record, Gregory and I approved and everybody else abstained. Thank you. Okay, report of the treasurer. This is a new job for all of us, but Gregory is going to undertake this.
I am.
We have a few months of to approve.
Yeah, we have 4 months worth: June, July, August, and September. I will start with June. As of June 1st, we had an opening balance of $378,293.94. We had deposits of $20,292.70. We had disbursements of $9,610.17, which gave us a closing balance of $388,976.47. Actually, that was in account number 2847. In the payroll account number 8243, we had an opening balance of $99,590.63. We had total monthly payroll expenses of $9,716.57, giving us a closing balance of $90,187.71. In the applications fund, account number 2855, we had an opening balance of $14,151.44. There was no change. We had a closing balance of $14,151.44. The lesser tenant account number 2863, we had an opening balance of $2,461.34. There was interest paid, giving us a closing balance of $2,469.41. Labor monitoring account 7072, we had an opening balance of $15,014.79. No change. Closing balance of $15,014.79. The money market account ending in 2871, opening balance of $1,255,815.27. There was interest paid of $4,117.43, giving us a closing balance of $1,259,932.70. Newburgh South Logistics Center application, account number 6521, had an opening balance of $33.59. Interest gained, giving us a closing balance of $33.70. Lakeland account number 4346 is zero balance. Lakeland bank account, account number 5683, had an opening balance of $4,154,731.08. No change in that account. Closing balance of $4,145,731.08.
I will take a motion to approve, June's treasurer's report.
So moved. Ally.
For July,
Yep. Mike Knappel, seconds.
Thank you. All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
Opposed or abstaining? Also, just as a point of note, and Adriana, you can correct me on this, but the final Lakeland account doesn't show accrued interest on an individual month basis. Don't you do that on a quarterly basis?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Yes, sorry. There are actually two motions we have to make. I also need a motion to approve the bills of June 2024.
So moved. Ally.
Mike, seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstaining? Thank you. Okay, July.
Here we go, July. Our operating account ending in 2847, we had an opening balance of $370,255.13. There were total deposits. Wait, sorry. With deposits, our total deposits were $88,471. Disbursements were $11,066.66, giving us a closing balance of $447,719.47. The payroll account ending in 8243, we had an opening balance of $90,187.71. Total, with the closing, total payroll expenses were $9,490.50, giving us a closing balance of $80,987.32. The application fund, ending in 2855, had an opening balance of $14,151.44, no change, with a closing balance of $14,151.44. The lesser tenant account, ending in 2863, had an opening balance of $2,469.41. Interest was paid with a closing balance of $2,477.78. The labor monitoring account, ending in 7072, had an opening balance of $15,014.79, no change. Closing balance of $15,014.79. The money market account, ending in 2871, had an opening balance of $1,259,932.70. Interest paid of $4,268.62, giving us a closing balance of $1,264,201.32. Newburgh South Logistics Center account, ending in 6521, had an opening balance of $33.70. There were deposits made, giving us a closing balance of $2,347.10. Lakeland account, ending in 4346, shows a zero balance, no change. Lakeland bank account number 5683 had an opening balance of $4,154,731.08, $52,511.18 interest, giving us a closing balance of $4,207,242.26.
Wonderful. I will need two motions, one to approve the Treasurer's Report of July 2024, and a separate one to approve the bills.
I'll make a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report from July as presented.
Second?
I'll second.
Wonderful. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstaining? Wonderful. And a motion to pay the bills.
I'll keep going. I'll make a motion to approve the bills from July as presented.
Second?
I'll second. Gregory.
Thank you, Gregory. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain? Okay, we're almost done here, halfway.
Okay.
August. Good job, Gregory.
4 in one meeting, wow. Our August operating budget, ending in 2847, had an opening balance of $458,451.74. Deposits were $55,238.98, and disbursements of $14,876.22, giving us a closing balance of $498,814.50. The payroll account, ending 8243, had an opening balance of $80,987.32. Payroll expenses were $9,794.13, giving us a closing balance of $71,448.24. The application fund, ending in 2855, opened with $14,151.44, no change, had a closing balance of $14,151.44. The lesser tenant account, ending in 2863, had an opening balance of $2,477.78, interest paid, giving us a closing balance of $2,486.17. Labor monitoring account, ending in 7072, had an opening balance of $15,014.79, no change, giving us a closing balance of $15,014.79. Money market account, ending in 2871, had an opening balance of $1,264,201.32, interest paid of $4,283.09, giving us a closing balance of $1,268,484.41. Newburgh South Logistics Center, account ending in 6521, opening balance of $2,347.10, with deposits giving us with the deposit and interest giving us a closing, how is that possible? Opening balance. Sorry. Okay, one more time. We had an opening balance of $2,347.10. We had deposits of $2,039.40, disbursements of $2,030, giving us a closing balance of $2,356.50. Lakeland account ending in 4346, zero balance, no change. Lakeland bank account ending in 5683 had an opening balance of $4,207,242.26, with a closing balance the same because the interest is quarterly.
Wonderful. I will take a motion to approve the Treasurer's Report of August 2024.
Should we wait for the minutes? Sorry, is it, or this is recorded? Does she need to she just stepped out to open the door?
It's being recorded.
Okay, so I will make that motion as long as
say your name.
Ally makes the motion to approve the August Treasurer's Report as presented.
Wonderful. Second?
Mike seconds.
Thank you, Mike. All approved? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed or abstain? Wonderful. And a motion to pay the bills for August of 2024.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills of August of 2024. Ally.
Wonderful. Second?
Mike seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed or abstaining? Wonderful. August is approved. We have one more, which is September.
September, Treasurer's Report. Operating account ending in 2847. We had an opening balance of $490,055.70. Deposits $59,649.07. Disbursements of $20,299.65, giving us a closing balance of $529,405.12. The payroll account ending in 8243 had an opening balance of $71,448.24. Total payroll expenses of $9,781.16, giving us a closing balance of $61,877.39. Applications fund ending in 2855. Opening balance $14,151.44, no change. Closing balance $14,151.44. The lesser tenant account ending in 2863 had an opening balance of $2,486.17, Interest paid with a closing balance of $2,494.22. The labor monitoring account, ending in 7072, had an opening balance of $15,014.79, no change. Closing balance, $15,014.79. Money market account, ending in 2871, had an opening balance of $1,268,484.41, $4,106.98 in interest, giving us a closing balance of $1,272,591.39. Newburgh's South Logistics Center, account number ending in 6521, had an opening balance of $2,072, deposits of $3,432.66, disbursements of $3,430, giving us a closing balance of $2,074.66. Provident Bank. Wait, bear with me one moment. Did we move? It should be Lakeland Bank.
Lakeland was sold to Provident.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ellie. Okay. Provident Bank, account number 4346, zero balance. Provident Bank, account number 5683, had an opening balance of $4,207,242.26. No change because interest is quarterly, giving us a closing balance of $4,207,242.26.
Wonderful. Very good job. I will take a motion to approve the treasurer's report of September 2024.
So moved. I would like a brief discussion about the Provident Bank.
Sure. Before we vote on it, yep.
So do we need a second to get it on the table?
Well, no, we can get the second right afterwards. We can have the discussion.
You do a
now.
second and then you can discuss.
Okay, a second?
Second.
I just, for the future agenda, I'd be interested, since it's moving so far away from being local, and looking at why we have that bank and whether we should keep it or transfer what is our largest sum account to a local bank. That's all.
So we did recently do an RFP for banks. Was it this past year or this past calendar year?
So that was kind of as local as we could get, because Rhinebeck and a lot of the credit unions cannot hold municipal, and so they could. And so within, compared to them in TD Bank, they were local. So that was the reason why they chose.
They had the highest interest rate on their money market account and their savings account. So yes, at the time they were more local. But yes, understood that they have become a bigger bank now. But we did, per our requirements, we did put it out to RFP not too long ago. Okay, any other questions about the report before we vote on it? No? All in favor of
Aye.
the motion that Ally proposed and Mike seconded? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Wonderful. A second motion to pay the bills.
I'll make a motion to pay the September 2024 bills. This is Ally.
Mike seconds.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? Wonderful. Thank you. Their background music. Okay, wonderful. Next, we're going to move on to the chairman's report. I am not chairman, I am vice chairman, but I am going to say a few words, and then we'll move on to council's report. Oh, sorry. Yes, I am not the chairman, I am the vice chairman, but I'll say a few words, and then we will move on. We have had an interesting last few months at the IDA with the resignation of a large majority of our board, 5 members. We are very excited, Gregory and I, and previous board members who are here, to welcome you guys. We have a lot of important work to do. As you can see from our agenda tonight and past agendas, we have seen a lot of applicants and done what I believe is a lot of important work for the city. Just some small statistics. Over the past years, the projects that are currently in the pipeline or have currently been approved, am I saying that correct, Chair? We have created 157 jobs for the city of Newburgh and over $235 million in project costs, which as a resident and as a taxpayer, I think is very important. We, as board members, very much value our positions and understand the importance as being residents, the importance to other residents. I would like to thank, on behalf of those of us who are left and future board members, our previous board members, some of whom are here. It is not a light job. We don't just meet for an hour once a month. Some have stated they've spent as much as 25 to 30 hours a week working on IDA projects. These committee meetings require a lot, as I'm sure a lot of you know from council meetings and other. The city is very fortunate in that their boards are voluntary positions, but are made up of residents who are renters, who are taxpayers, who are very intelligent. I know many of our board members who have higher degrees, who are educated, who are very creative, who run successful businesses, and contribute tremendously to these boards and contribute tremendously to their communities and do these jobs because they care about their communities. We are obviously volunteers. And so with that, thank you to our previous board members. Thank you for our new board members for committing this time and this sensitivity. What we do on the IDA is try to create jobs and tax rateables, commercial tax rateables most specifically. We have a great city that we are hoping to do a lot more work in. There is certainly a lot more jobs and tax rateables to create. And so we very much look forward to having you guys here and to moving on. The city adopted this charter as an IDA in 1982. Maybe not selfishly, maybe community-wide. I believe it is an extremely beneficial agency and a benefit to the community to be able to have this. Not all communities have IDAs. Not all communities are able to provide these benefits. And again, as residents and as taxpayers and renters, we do this very, very consciously and very, very sensitively to the people in our community. We are your neighbors. We meet at the grocery store. We see you down the street. We are, again, looking forward to working with members of City Hall and City Council representatives as in order for the IDA to really truly do its work, it really needs collaboration from the other agencies and particularly from our city. So thank you. Gregory, do you have any?
It's an honor to serve on this board, and I'm just going to add that we've spent the last year creating a new website, which is our forward-facing site for the city. So please visit it, share it with people. The more people who see it, the more businesses will see what a fantastic place Newburgh is and will want to invest and build a future here in this amazing city.
I'm also just going to add, which I did not. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather. I also really very much would like to thank Bob and David, even though it's been a shorter amount of time that you've been working with us, and Cher and Adriana. We, as Ali started off the meeting saying, all of us who remain, but previous board members, we're a great group of people, very creative, very intelligent, and asked a lot of questions. And we all read everything that came through us and asked many, many questions of these guys, which I know at times they did not necessarily want to field quite as many questions, but it's very, very important to have good representation to be able to ask these questions, as all of us have different backgrounds in different fields. So thank you to you guys tremendously. I will move on to the next agenda item, which is council's report. Bob, if you would like.
Sure. Well, I've already talked about the outstanding projects. We have projects tonight that, as the resolutions are introduced, I'll be happy to discuss. I don't know if any of the board members have any other questions for me at this time, but I think I've already covered the outstanding projects, and Cher has as well.
Cher, do you want to say anything in addition for your executive director's report?
I've already kind of given you an overview of all the projects, but I'll reiterate the same statements. We're very happy to have a full board that will be functioning, and that, as already mentioned, Bob and I are here for any questions that you have. I realize this is a new process for a lot of you, and don't feel like any question is a dumb question. Please come and ask me if you don't understand something, if you don't understand the process, how it works. I'm more than happy to hold your hand and help you understand anything that's unclear. And it's kind of an exciting time. I've never, in my 6 years here, had so many projects been thrown at the agency at once. It's also a great time for you to be here, because that's how you'll learn. You'll pick it up very quickly with everything that we have coming through the pipeline. So with that said, just, I'm only an email or a phone call away. If you don't understand something, more than happy to explain, or find someone who can explain it for you. That's all.
I will also mention we do have additional counsel, Kelly Pressler from Jacobowitz and Gubitz, who has been helping us with the Armory process, which has been a very long and difficult cobweb of legal issues from a lot of different sides. I had asked her to come and to debrief everybody on where we stand with that. She said there wasn't much report this month and is hoping to come next month. I believe you saw emails, excuse me, regarding that. That we are in the process of a quiet title action, and it is in front of the judge, and we can't do anything towards that end until she has sort of next steps within that process. So with that said, per our previous recommendation, we'll maybe push the housekeeping resolution to the end, and we will start with resolution 2024-10-21-02, public hearing for Scobie Drive.
So might I just do a little introduction, and then Bob can interject if there's any other explanations needed. This is for a brownfield site that the IDA owns. We are currently under a contract of sale to sell them the property, and then also for a pilot. What you have before you is a copy of an abstract which kind of gives you the overall numbers of the project, how long the pilot is, how many jobs will be created, how large the facility is. You also have a copy of, in front of you, the cost-benefit analysis, which we require an independent consultant to provide us before you all will take a look at this resolution and before we have a public hearing. So the resolution before you is just to hold a public hearing for public comment. You're not agreeing to give them a pilot or any other financial assistance. It's just to open up a comment period, and also we've attached a copy of the letter that would be sent to the taxing jurisdictions. Anything else, Bob?
Sure, let me just jump in. So by way of background, especially for the new board members, the agency can't give cash, doesn't give financing. What the agency can do is give what's called financial assistance under the statute. The financial assistance is one of 4 different ways. Bonds, which we talked about earlier, which really don't happen anymore and won't happen for this project. The other 3 are pilot, a payment in lieu of tax agreement, a sales tax exemption for equipment used in connection with the development of the project, and a mortgage recording tax exemption. If the project gets financing, The financing, the mortgage in this state requires the payment of a mortgage recording tax. This would allow them to be exempt. How that's accomplished is by what's called a straight lease transaction. The agency becomes the tenant under what's called an underlying lease, and then leases the project back to the developer. In that way, the agency is actually the sponsor of the project and providing the tax exemption, the sales tax exemption, the mortgage recording tax exemption, and then the pilot. As Cher mentioned, this resolution is the first step of whether or not the agency would grant the financial assistance. The statute requires that if the financial assistance is greater than $100,000, you must hold a public hearing and invite the public to come in and hear about the project and ask questions or provide opinions about the project. In addition, in this case, this resolution sets a public hearing for what's called a deviation. You have a uniform tax exempt policy that's required by the statute. That UTEP, Uniform Tax Exemption Policy, is essentially for 10 years only. This pilot is a request for a 15-year pilot. And the statute states that if you deviate from your existing policy, you as an agency must provide written notice to all of the affected taxing jurisdictions, which in your case would be the city, the county, and the school board, and provide them an opportunity to comment on the proposed deviation from the standard UTEP policy, which they've already been provided an opportunity to comment on. So the resolution would set up one hearing to consider the public hearing, what are the comments on the project, and the deviation hearing, or is there any objection to the proposed pilot agreement for up to 15 years. You must identify in the resolution, and the resolution does do that, the amount of the financial assistance being requested. So in this case, the pilot is for 15 years, and the total projected savings or exemptions would be $2,395,955. The mortgage recording tax exemption is projected to be $212,310,000, and the sales tax exemption is projected to be $914,625. Also attached to the resolution is the draft deviation letter that would go out to the taxing jurisdictions, setting forth what the deviation is and why the agency believes that it is beneficial to consider the deviation at this time. The statute requires a 10-day period for the public hearing if it's more than $100,000. There is no timing, no longer any timing for the deviation hearing. An old part of the statute used to require a 30-day notice. The statute does require a copy of the resolution and the letter be sent to the taxing jurisdictions by either certified mail, return receipt requested, or by email with a read receipt response as well. Our recommendation is, because this is a combined hearing, that you provide the taxing jurisdictions and the public at least 30 days notice before you hold the hearing. The hearing can be held by the executive director, can be held by anyone. We typically would get a court reporter to come in and create a transcript, and then that transcript is provided to the board for review and consideration. Cher mentioned the cost-benefit analysis. The cost-benefit analysis is required by the statute to be in your hand and reviewed prior to the passage or consideration, rather, of this public hearing resolution. I'll be happy to entertain any additional questions.
So, quick question, because I know that this has come up as I've talked to our residents and members of our city council. in these cost-benefit analyses, when we are analyzing the number of jobs that are proposed to be created in these projects, why are there not requirements that a certain percentage of these jobs go to city residents? Is that simply difficulty, prerogative, policy? I wonder if you could just explain a little bit for the record.
So, Michael, that's a great question. You absolutely can insist on that, but that would be at the approving resolution stage. And in fact, for the hotel, that's exactly what you did. The board did require that a certain percentage not only were residents of the city, but that the local community, the local college, had a training program for city residents to work there. So absolutely, you can do that.
Great, thank you.
Can you explain also our monitoring requirement?
Yes. So the agency adopted a local labor law requirement so that at least 85% of the cost of the project that's getting done within the city, 85% of the labor must be local. And the town of one of the board members from the town of Montgomery was here a few months ago saying that this was the model for the county and the state because it's such a strict requirement. So in the treasury report that was just read, you had a local labor monitoring account of $15,000. That's for the hotel, which hasn't started yet. You have a consultant that will be on site, receive reports on a monthly basis to monitor that project when it gets started to ensure that they are, in fact, using local labor. There are 6 exceptions in the local labor policy. Don't ask me what those, to repeat those 6 right now, but they are essentially those parts of a project that can't be accommodated by local labor. And your local labor is not just the city of Newburgh, it's the county and the surrounding counties. The local labor policies have been implemented by IDAs to address those cases where labor from outside the state, not just outside the county, but outside the state, came in, did work relatively inexpensive, and left, providing no benefit to local residents. In the case where there was some unique aspect of a project, so for example, there are some projects that there is equipment that comes from overseas and only people that are trained or companies that are trained in installing that equipment have to be used, there are exceptions for that as well.
I also just want to point out, and I wish we were able to have a retreat to explain these things more in depth for our new board members, but there is a cost-benefit analysis which is required, and the board also requires a separate test which is called a test of reasonableness, which is done by an outside agency which reviews the project and reviews their need, their need for this assistance. Bob, I would also like you if you could explain the difference between, so he read off how many benefits, theoretical benefits, are coming to a project. Many of these projects are happening, like, for example, this one, on a property that either is providing currently very, very little taxes or no taxes. Some of these buildings are fully off the tax roll. And so we hear a lot as board members, people getting upset that the IDA is giving out taxes, is giving out residents' taxes to these projects. That's a misnomer. That's not how it works. There are properties that would not maybe otherwise be developed that are sitting either off the tax rolls or are not providing jobs, where we have projects that are coming in that are proposing to make it a productive piece of property, to turn it into something that is going to provide jobs and going to provide taxes. The purpose of these pilots or these benefits is to give projects that would not otherwise be able to happen a leg up to make their numbers, their financials work, to become active and participating members of the Newburgh economy, and hopefully long sustainable members of the economy. So they are putting buildings into service. They are bringing jobs to the area that will hopefully long survive our pilot, and that in the process of the pilot is generally a graduated amount of taxes that they come back onto the tax roll. Till the end of it, they are full participating tax members of the community. Our hope, obviously, and in how we review these projects, is to look at projects that are sustainable, that have the ability to stay on the tax rolls and provide these jobs far into the future, far beyond the pilot. It is not for the benefit of giving developers just an extra goose to their returns. And as a resident and a taxpayer, I care an awful lot about that, as do many of our previous and existing board members. So just to understand, not all IDAs have to go through the additional test of reasonableness, but we feel that it's important, or we have felt in the past that it's important to ask developers to show that they really need these potential benefits.
And just to pick up on a point of that, if you look at page 4 of the draft resolution, that has the pilot schedule. The pilot payment is on the improvements only. So right now, as vacant land, that land is taxed, would be taxed if it wasn't owned by the agency, at a number as vacant land. That number will always have to be paid by the new owner of the property. They will also have to pay any special assessments against the property. That's not affected, those are not affected, rather, by the pilot. So if there was a sewer assessment or emergency EMT assessment or fire assessment, fire district assessment, whatever those are, whatever those increases are over the life of the pilot, they have to be paid. It's only based on the improvements to the point that are now potentially accessible if, as, and when the project actually gets developed.
So this resolution, again, as Bob explained, is just to allow for a public hearing. This does not commit us to agreeing to a pilot or any benefits for this project. This allows it to move to the next step. The public can give its input, and then we have to address these comments to move forward. Yeah.
I just have another process question for Bob. So if I understand it correctly, this is scheduled for the next meeting because we do not legally have to wait 30 days, even if there's not 30 between it. We need to wait 10?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You have to at least 10 days notice, okay? Because this is a combined hearing, our recommendation would be that you do a 30-day notice, but you can do 10, you can do 20. It's entirely up to you. It's not set by this resolution. This resolution simply says you're authorizing the executive director to schedule. If tonight you want to say that it has to be on at least 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, 40 days notice, that's entirely up to you. Okay? Again, the statute only requires now 10 days. If it was 10 years ago when we were sitting here, I would tell you the statute says 30, but it no longer says that. Actually, 15 years ago. Sorry.
And then just further background of this. So they are coming to us, this is Scobie Drive, so they have otherwise transacted with us to obtain this parcel.
So by way of background, again, the agency entered into a contract of sale. This is the property that's next to the former city landfill and the chemical company up there too?
Well, it's next to the other project that we have up tonight as well.
DuPont.
Yeah, they're next to each
Right.
other.
So Scobie approached after an RFP. The agency issued an RFP. They were one of, I think they were the only interested party. There may have been two, but they were the really only interested party. They have spent the last 4 years amending the brownfield cleanup agreement that was previously done by the last interested party, which I think was in 2014, for some sort of electrical
Lighting
company,
company.
lighting company. So the developer has spent a fair amount of time and a fair amount of engineering work and investigative work to satisfy the comments from DEC. And they are at a point now that DEC has accepted the brownfield cleanup agreement and has signed off on their plan to develop the property and will have conditions to it. One of those conditions will be that it can never, ever, ever be used as residential property. They'll have to do a cap, and it can be used for this type of purpose, which is a warehouse. The closing, the current contract of sale as amended, states that they have to close on the property by the end of June. So that's what we're attempting to assist them with. They have said that they won't proceed without this financial assistance.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions before we move to a resolution?
So you're looking for a motion to approve this and set a date at the same time, or give her, how does, how does this normally
So
work?
you just approve, and then Chair will circulate dates among the board and allow, so again, for public hearings, the executive director can run that meeting herself. This agency traditionally tries to have some board members present at that hearing, which is a good practice to have, but there's no requirement to do that in the statute. Depending on the number of people that attend the public hearing, you may decide to have another one, which this agency has done, has held a second public meeting, either because there were too many people, they couldn't get to the microphone, they didn't want to speak, there were a lot of written comments afterward, or that no one appeared because they didn't get the notice and would like the opportunity to come in again. You typically would hold the meeting open so that the public can submit written comments that would become part of your public record, and it's really providing the board information to make a determination. Do the taxing jurisdictions have any objection? Does the community have any objection? Is there support? Can the objections be addressed somehow? To your point, in an approving resolution, Mike, put in what the local requirements are for labor and have a program that would establish training or how they propose to go about to get the local labor market involved. All of that can be accomplished down the line, but that's part of what you want to hear in the public hearing.
So, Chair, when would this be for the next meeting?
I need to schedule with the consultant that does the cost-benefit analysis. I like them, well, the board, we usually like them to come and present to the public and explain that report. I need to consult with the developer themselves, but normally I like to do it at the beginning of a board meeting because you all are here. So but we're also coming up on holiday season that things are going to get kind of crazy. So if you all pass this, then I'll work on the dates and then kind of get to understand you individually if this is something you want to be here for, or if you want me to do on my own. So.
I will call for a motion to approve resolution number 2024-10-21-02.
I move to approve resolution number 2024-10-21-02.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Does this require a roll call?
Yes.
Does, okay. Christina Amato,
Yes.
Gregory Nato,
Yes.
Michael Neppel,
Yes.
Alexandra Church,
Yes.
Vickiana Demora,
Yes.
Sharonda Powell. Resolution passes.
Wonderful. Okay, next resolution, number 2024-10-21-03, a public hearing for 5072 Liberty Street LLC.
We do have some visitors
Who would like to
who
present?
would like to give some comments. We can also just talk about that. Andrew is here pretty much for the same exact resolution that we just considered, just so you understand.
I've gotten my policy questions.
Yeah, you got the mic right there, yeah.
Can I just say one other thing before you start? Thanks, Andrew. One other thing that comes up with these applications, obviously we're concerned about number of jobs. I don't know how much you guys have gotten into what sort of contract has to be signed essentially with the IDA in order to get these benefits, but there are things called reverter clauses, and so if the developer does not adhere to what they agreed to with the project, then there is a potential for the IDA, well, Bob can explain what a reverter clause does and what it is. But in that process, and in the application, there is an estimated number of tax benefits and there is an estimated number of jobs. That would then be written into the pilot, and they are committed to that. So it's not just like, we think we're going to provide 5 jobs and they provide no jobs, or we think we're going to provide 300 jobs and provide no jobs. Again, our number one purview is creating jobs and creating tax benefits for the city. So we hold the number of jobs very sacred. Okay.
Good evening, everybody. I believe I was here last in maybe May, I think, just to give a preview of the project, but since we have a couple of new board members, which I will orient this towards. So I've been working on this project for about 2 years. It's a critical project, I believe, for the city of Newburgh in terms of its housing stock. Wait. Sorry, I pulled the wrong ones. There we go. My apologies. So this is the Foundry. This is a project that we just completed in the last year. Some of you may be familiar with it. It's across the street. The project we're here talking about tonight is 1 Lafayette, which is located just south of Washington's headquarters. This is a critical infill site for the city of Newburgh, located on its one of its more important commercial strips, Liberty Street. The project envisions sorry about that, 145 units of residential housing, 128 of which will be affordable for people making anywhere between 30 and 80% AMI. Our application has the breakdown of the units. In addition to 18 units of market, just on the housing bit alone, this project is meant to be a bridging project, so it is seeking to provide housing to as many different types of city residents as possible. So we are targeting people from various socioeconomic backgrounds. The intent of that is to ensure that the projects we do build serve a wide range of residents. Oftentimes when you segregate housing by income, that can sometimes have deleterious effects insofar as you are siloing people by income. This is a graduated project, and you have the ancillary benefits of mixing people together from various backgrounds in the hopes that through shared experience, people are able to assist and benefit each other. In addition to that, the project includes 11,000 square feet of retail. We have not yet determined how that retail will be broken up. That's to some extent once we get a little further down the line and have a sense of demand for that retail and how to allocate it, in addition to an underground parking garage which will accommodate 46 spots. The project recently was granted a parking variance. Yes. 46 spots. That'll be 145 units. So in addition to the parking that we are providing, we will be working with the City Council to hopefully pass a resolution to ensure that the directions of Edwards, Johns, and Lafayette are turned into one-ways to better accommodate parking on those streets in order to accommodate potential additional parking by residents. This was a decision that the zoning board made in support of the project. We had a traffic engineer come in and evaluate the local area, the neighborhood, and the parking density currently that those streets currently hold. And we were able to demonstrate that the neighborhood can sustain that parking. Keep in mind that, many of these, if not all of these people will be working, and so oftentimes at night you have an excess of parking available, and so you're going to have rotation. Trying to think what else to say. Again, we are working to build off of this progress that we've established here and to ensure that many of the businesses on Liberty Street, which have taken a chance in opening up there, continue to benefit from an increasing customer base, and to ensure that our downtown is a walkable downtown, right? To activate our streets with residents who are in some ways keeping eyes on the streets, right? We know that areas that have increased street traffic or foot traffic are generally safer because there are people there occupying those spaces. So it's, I believe, a very exciting project. It, should we be funded by the state, will be the largest residential development project in the city of Newburgh, likely in the last 40 and possibly longer period of time. So we're very proud of this. It was it was a long process to get the landowner to agree to sell. He's never sold anything before. So we're very excited to be here tonight and to continue this process. Just a sense of what that retail section here, what the units will more or less look like. There's a mix of 1, 2s, and 3s, again, across AMI bands. Can I answer any questions? Sure. So there will be a general courtyard in the middle here, which you can see right here, which is meant as a common area. In addition to that, it will have a gym facility in addition to a co-working space. So there will be some resident amenities in terms of outdoor space and then space on the inside.
Andrew, how far are you through the other agency approvals?
HCR typically starts evaluating projects for next year's funding cycle in the fall. An important thing they look to in terms of deciding whether or not to fund a project, as you guys well know, affordable housing financing in New York State is a competitive process. All communities are vying for the same dollars from the state. There are a limited amount of dollars. And so we're starting to engage with the agency probably in the next month. The agency, as a matter of policy, expects municipalities that these projects are potentially to be built in to participate in these projects, to demonstrate a desire to see these projects through. And they ask that those municipalities do so by assisting with the financing in the form of a pilot.
I mean local agencies, the planning board,
Oh,
zoning.
my apologies. Yes, so we are fully entitled at the local level. We have ARC approval, planning board approval, and zoning board approval.
Have you, I see a cost-benefit analysis. You haven't done a test of reasonableness.
We are waiting on the consultant to receive that, or they have all the information they need. They have not yet completed it. What they communicated to me was that it was not necessary for today's meeting, but they will be getting to it in short order.
Okay.
Can you give us an idea of what support staff, how many jobs will be created?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just so that the public also can hear.
Sure, absolutely. Let me pull those numbers up. So during, we anticipate a 3-year construction timeline, 2.5 year. In that first year, we anticipate creating about 24 jobs, of which full-time jobs, So we anticipate in that first year 4 full-time construction jobs, 24 So over the course of the project, we anticipate creating in that first year 8 design jobs and 7 construction jobs. That's in the very beginning. In the second year, we anticipate 24 design-level jobs, so that's engineers, architects, other various consultants, and 161 construction jobs. And then in year 3, again, 24 design jobs and 179 construction jobs.
How many permanent?
Say again?
How many permanent jobs?
So those are all permanent jobs.
The 100 and how many design jobs?
So those are permanent during the course of construction in the sense that they are full-time.
How many permanent within the commercial spaces?
Yes. So we anticipate, in terms of the building itself, 2 permanent jobs, a full-time site super and or building super, as well as building manager or leasing agent. And then we anticipate somewhere between 6 to 18 retail jobs in the 11,000 square feet. Again, somewhat dependent on how many businesses occupy that space, the size of those businesses.
And the gym is a closed gym for just the residents. It's not a public.
Correct, but
public gym.
certainly if there was a gym that wanted to occupy a retail space, we'd certainly entertain that.
Andrew, can you give a breakdown of 1, 2, 3 bedroom units? Just trying to get an idea of how many people might be living in this building.
Yes, I believe that is in the application. I don't have that off the top of my head, but I could probably look it up quickly, or I could get back to you guys.
No, that's fine. I did see it earlier. I just didn't know if you had it off the top of your head. And the reason why I ask is because, I think anybody who spends a lot of time on Liberty Street, I think we all do notice that despite the fantastic array of shops and the hard work of people that have opened these businesses there, the low density of the downtown residential that we currently have, you walk around Liberty Street on the weekend and you just do not see enough people frequenting these shops, and it is because we don't have enough people living downtown. So I think, while the cost-benefit analysis here is important, the test of reasonableness is important, I think it's also important to keep in mind that you cannot have jobs if you do not have people to work in them, right? So I think this is an exciting project. I think there are some questions that we'll continue to confront on the way through the process, but this is an exciting project that will bring some much-needed density downtown if it happens.
If I could just comment to that. So in some of the projects that come before us, they're not commercial. At the moment, they're predominantly residential, and so we have a difficult task of saying it's not creating jobs, but it's bringing density of people who will support the current businesses and therefore create this trickle effect. So yeah, we agree. We've also been thinking the same thing. The Foundry is a perfect example of that.
Can I speak to that too, actually? Bob, permission to approach the bench. Okay. I'll take that as a yes. So I'm just going to pass out. I did quite a bit of research. I contacted all of the IDAs in the Hudson Valley to survey them on the work they've done to support housing in their counties and or municipalities, which I will share with you. Right now, IDAs across this region are doing everything they can to reinvent themselves and apply their resources to the areas that need assistance. As we well know, we are in a housing crisis. This extends to affordable housing, market rate housing. We have a market that is not working for various reasons: interest rates, supply chain, labor, to say nothing of the various funding systems which are working and simultaneously maybe not working fast enough. So I'd just like to distribute this. It's broken down by area. You'll see on the list projects that were funded that are affordable are in green, market rate are in blue and white, and then in process are in red. The projects that are in blue are projects that were approved that deviated from that IDA's UTEP. So typically IDAs have UTEPs of 15 to 20 years, depending on the agency. Because affordably funded projects often have compliance periods of 50 years, with debt financing at a minimum of 30. Funding institutions expect these pilots to match the terms of the loans offered by these institutions in order to ensure stable cash flow during the lifetime of their loans, right? If you're a bank and you're lending to a project where rents are limited and your term of financing is 30 years, but your pilot is only 15, then you are potentially engaging in a project that bears huge risk down the line when your taxes will potentially increase, but your ability to increase rents is fixed. So I'll just pass these out.
Andrew, does that mean that, excuse me, at the end of your 30-year loan, they will expect another 30-year pilot with the next loan?
I will answer that. Thanks.
So typically these projects, the compliance period are 50 years. Typically somewhere between year 20 and 30, they are recapitalized. So the project will then reapply for a new round of affordable housing tax credits in order to tackle critical, what are called capital expenditures, right? So the useful life maybe of the roof or mechanical systems will have ended, and the project will re-engage the agency for new funding, which would then potentially necessitate a new pilot, right, in order to allow the project, again, to benefit from state financing as well as a new mortgage.
So it will be a continuing pilot, lifetime pilot.
It's likely, but not necessarily. State policy, again, is a 50-year compliance period. This is there's no negotiation here. These projects must be affordable for 50 years, and that is the way that the state is working in this current moment to address the housing crisis, right? They don't want to lose projects that they have worked hard to spin up while they simultaneously attempt to commit new funds to projects to meet demand.
Okay. I will just say that it is a pretty big deviation from our existing UTEP. We are, again, being asked to hold a public hearing to move forward with public. Will we have a test of reasonableness before the public hearing?
Bob is nodding his head yes.
Based on what the consultant has said, yes.
I will. Anybody else have any questions?
Maybe I'll just add one other thing. In surveying all of these IDAs, which are unbelievable resources, they're doing very unique things, and I certainly encourage you guys, as some of the newer members too, perhaps, the directors and executive directors of these IDAs are, responding uniquely in their locales and coming up with new ways to unlock development potential. I'll just point quickly to the Ulster IDA, which has established a separate UTEP for housing, which they are anticipating approving next month. So certainly something to consider as you consider the role of the IDA. In addition to that, they're actually, and again, this is the Ulster County IDA, they're holding a meeting with all of their tax assessors for all municipalities in that county in order to sync how their assessors are applying the tax code in those local jurisdictions so that there is communication between local assessors and the IDA about how to address these issues. And I thought it was a wonderful example of a county agency working with their local municipalities to get in lockstep on these issues.
I just have a brief comment that there was the executive director opened this by noting this project is also known as 1 Lafayette Street. I need to state that is another property in the city of Newburgh that is not in this development parcel, and I would ask that this board considers the actual address as it's written in all the documents.
Which we'll clarify is 50-72 Liberty Street.
Correct. Gotcha.
I will just add also, we are currently in negotiations with that property owner to assume that name, so potential that we will actually claim it.
Okay. Excuse me. I will take a motion for Resolution 2024-10-21-03.
So moved. Ally?
Second?
Second, Mike?
Okay, let's do a roll call. 1 second. Christina Amato.
I'm going to abstain.
Michael Nepple. Alexandra Church.
Yes.
Sharonda Powell. And Vickiana Demora.
Yes.
Resolution passes.
Did she ask you?
Greg vote?
You didn't ask
Gregory? Oh, I'm sorry. Is your name not in here?
Yes.
What's your vote? Yes? Okay. Sorry about that. Oh, I went. No. Okay.
Okay. On to next. We have Resolution 2024-10-21-04, seeker for South Logistics LLC.
So, what's the best way to do this? We have you. Well, we should have them talk. You should come up and introduce the project, and then we'll talk about the resolutions before us.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Bazidlo. I'm outside counsel for the project. Certain of the board members have heard us talk ad nauseum about this, but we'll give a brief presentation of what's going on here. This site is the proposed development of a 416,000 square foot warehouse distribution facility. It's located on South Street, kind of on the corner of South Street and Pierce's Road. Locally, it's the old DuPont Stauffer AstraZeneca manufacturing site, and it is located kind of adjacent to the Scobie Drive property that you were discussing earlier. The site was the location of a chemical manufacturing facility for a very long time. It obviously eventually went defunct. The site was very contaminated. The previous owners had taken up remedial action on the site under the eye of the State Department of Environmental Conservation. There is a cleanup agreement in place for the site. Brookfield Properties, of which the South Street Logistics LLC is a subsidiary of, purchased the property. There is still more environmental cleanup work to be done on the property, but it is we have discussed that with DEC, have an agreement with them as to what needs to be done. The project is fully approved by the City Planning Board and the City Zoning Board. Ms. Church actually was involved in some of that, so I think she knows about the project. Just basically, we can go into as much detail as the board members may want about the project, or we can, keep what type of warehouse? It is right now we're going to build the warehouse on spec, so it doesn't have a tenant signed up for it yet. Depending on what the tenant will eventually be, will have a big determination as to the number of jobs that would be created for the project. What we can say that no matter what type of tenant comes into the building, the construction cost is still the same. It's about a $54 million project, so it's a large project. It'll result in 110 construction jobs, and that doesn't change no matter who the tenant is. Depending on who the tenant may be, it depends on the type of operation they're going to do. It could be as high as what do they call them? Well, a pick and pack operation that requires the most employees. You may see 200, 220 people located here. It might be something that's more automated than that, and so you may see people around 100 or so. Or it could be a kind of facility where there's large items that are going to be distributed out of it and very automated. So you could see as low as around 31 employees. And hence why when it comes to, there was some mention before about the recapture events, hence why, when it comes to, well, what can we absolutely guarantee for the recapture event definition, that's why we have the number of 31 in there. But in reality, it's probably going to be more jobs than that. But when it comes to an agreement as to what's the lowest, what's the lowest you can absolutely guarantee here, that's where the 31 number comes from. So, okay. And just basically, from a design point of view, the building's all fully designed. We were hoping that we could be in construction, but it's critical that these pilot benefits get straightened out first, because otherwise the project's not financially viable without them. So, Will, I don't know if you want to say a little bit more, or okay, we'll answer any questions, or otherwise we could keep talking about it. But it'd probably be more poignant if you ask questions, or if you have any questions, we could answer them then. So,
I do have a question, just for the sake of the board. What can be built on that site?
The site is very restrictive from the DEC point of view. So you cannot build housing. You cannot have a park. You can only build pretty much what we're talking about building here, a commercial facility. And basically, when you think about it, a large portion of this site is actually a landfill portion. What AstraZeneca, there's another name of the company, but we'll call it AstraZeneca for the sake of this argument. What they did when they remediated the site, they took some of the material that was there that was allowable, and they pushed it to the northern, I always get the directions mixed up, but closer to the 84, and created a landfill facility there. So that's there, and that's capped. But the rest of the site, what DEC will allow is that you could put up a building, you could put up parking lots, you could put in drainage facilities, but you cannot put residential, and you certainly cannot have it to be any kind of passive recreation. And that is an actual deed restriction that the state makes you put on the property that goes on forever. So.
Thank you. And you guys completed a test of reasonableness, which we saw.
Yes, there has been a test of reasonableness. There's been the cost-benefit analysis has been done. It's been modified once. We've actually had 2 public hearings on the project in front of this board. There were public hearings associated with the planning board and the ZBA approvals. So the project has gotten a lot of public disclosure, I'll call it, and public advertisement. So it's well known. So.
I will just state I had asked Cher a few months ago to review our projects in terms of the number of jobs that they create versus the value of the pilot being requested as a commercial project. You guys are kind of right in line with where other commercial projects are with the 31 jobs. For the value of the pilot is about $135,000 per job, which again, most of our projects, or a large majority of our projects, are in that range. So I think as a defensibleness, that is nice to see as well.
From a tax revenue point of view, similar to when you were discussing the other project previously, the site is abandoned. Abandoned is the wrong word. It's fallow, I'll call it at this point in time. Has those very restrictive covenants on it from DEC. This project, if approved with the pilot agreement that we've requested, which is a 10-year pilot in conformance with your UTEP, will generate an additional $5.4 million over what the property would generate if you didn't do anything else with it. So the city will, and the taxing districts will get an additional $5.4 million over that 10-year period. And then at the end of the 10-year period, it's fully taxed.
Fully taxed, yes.
I want to add, too, that the planning board was very careful in making sure that this property, which is solely jobs, 30 or greater, is incredibly accessible. There are sidewalks that lead there. A large part of my job with economic development is finding how to connect city residents to jobs. And this one, you can just walk there. You can bike there. There are bike amenities, all of those things, along with plenty of parking because it is a warehouse facility. But I think that's important. These would be jobs in the city of Newburgh for those who are often traveling outside beyond the realm of the buses.
And that is a critical point about this. You know, it's an unusual site for this. I've been involved in these, and Will has been involved in these for a number of years. A lot of times these are on greenfield sites that are out, on undeveloped areas, and the only way you can get to them is by car. This site is unique that it's not, you could walk to it, you could ride a bike to it, there's bus service available to get to it, so it's very pedestrian accessible. And yet has good facilities to be able to move trucks and employees in and out of the facility also. So.
I have a question. This has come up a lot as I've talked to our residents. There's a real concern that there will be no jobs that will materialize on this site, and it will be a fully automated warehouse. So I think that's a lens through which, folks will consider this project and have been considering this project. Would this project move forward if the pilot agreement contained a provision requiring actual human employees on site of whatever tenant?
Well, I'll let Will answer the question. I don't think that's a problem because it's a big building to have nobody inside of it. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it'd ever be that fully automated. So.
Isn't this part of our reverter clause? The 31 jobs are required. Those are 31 human jobs. So,
So Mike, that's another great question. And if you go to the 05 resolution, which is the approving resolution, so we're getting a little ahead, but I think it's appropriate to talk about that. If you go to the Exhibit A of the approving resolution, which is on page A1, Exhibit A becomes part of what the statute requires, which is called a Uniform Project Benefit Agreement. that agreement has to set forth what are the expected benefits to the community, including the pilot, and the project benefits agreement does go into what the pilot is as well as what the sales tax benefits are. And the intent of this Exhibit A is that it becomes, you approve it, when you approve it, it becomes part of that project benefit agreement. Now, one of the items that's there in Section 2 is that they create within 12 months of completion a minimum of 31 jobs and a projected of 6 indirect jobs, which comes from the cost-benefit analysis done by MRB. If they do not have the 31 jobs within 12 months, what typically happens with the agency is that you would send a letter to them saying, where are the jobs? And they would provide you an explanation, and then the board would have to make a determination based on reasonableness, whether or not their explanation makes sense. Some projects are delayed. Some projects need to get going. But it's up to you if you give them extra time or not. Based on my experience with IDAs, if they're within 10%, you give them, usually you'd give them a little extra time. If they're 50%, there's a problem, okay? And then the ABO will require you to address that, because annually the executive director files a report. How many jobs were projected? 31. How many jobs have been created? If it's 10, the ABO is going to send a notice to the agency saying, what gives? What's going on? And you either then say, well, we've given them extra time, or what is part of Exhibit B, if you continue on to the next exhibit, the recapture. Okay, this is where the rubber hits the road. If they don't fit everything that's in A, if they don't meet those requirements, then under the statute you must recapture the benefits that they've taken advantage of. And that requires them to pay back the mortgage recording exemption, to pay back the sales tax exemption, which goes to the state, doesn't go to the agency, and then also on the pilot, cancel the pilot and allow the assessor's office to then fully assess the property, and to the extent permitted by the assessment rules to recapture and look back how much they can. I think they can go back 3 years under the current statute. Go back and reassess and recapture all of the benefits that were provided. What is not in here, based on your earlier question, which is something that I would point out to the board when we get to the resolution to consider, is the local labor requirement. And so we can add that in here if they're agreeable to that, to make sure that a portion or all of the 31 jobs has the local labor requirement, and we can add restrictions in here to that effect.
Thank you. And I think I would just make the further comment with that context from Bob, which I appreciate. 415,000 square feet, is that what it is? 416? So I think a local labor requirement in a facility of that size that is requesting these benefits is critically important. And I would say, building on spec, it would be fantastic if on the other side of this, a tax revenue generating business for the city, like a marijuana processing company or a growing operation, were located in that space. And I would just say, generally, for the record, that is something that I think this agency and the city council, let alone the residents, would be very interested in seeing for any warehouses that get built in the city that could handle those type of operations, that would both bring jobs and revenue generating sales to the city.
Okay, so are you making a proposal to change the resolution? This is a resolution to pass the pilot, correct?
So there's two resolutions for this project before the board. The first one is a seeker resolution. Obviously, planning has already passed a seeker resolution when they adopted, and what the agency typically does is incorporate what has already been done by the city planning department into part of its seeker resolution. So Resolution 10-2104 is the seeker resolution for this project, which incorporates the neg deck that is already done by the planning department. The 10-2105 resolution would be the approving resolution. And so certainly if, I think if we want to include a requirement for local, it's really not local labor because that's part of the construction time, which they're subject to the local labor policy. But the local employment requirement, I think we could add that tonight. If it's the income piece, I think I would recommend that the agency defer. I know you don't want to hear that, but I think the agency should defer consideration of the resolution tonight in order to work on the language for that requirement to be part of Exhibit A.
So would we then call out specific businesses that we request or that we require in order to produce this income, or how do we check that?
I think that, I think Mike has something in mind. I think the better, subject to what Mike says, but I think a better way to do it is not define the business, but define the category of income producing. And then I think what's important is to try and develop what benchmarks the agency wants to include in the requirement for that requirement.
So,
before you go too far down that road, this facility, will rely on private investment and also the company's investment too, and the terms of those investments are not going to allow us to name specific entities like that. It has to be left open to the general market of what tenants would be available.
I think that's what I suggested. But the methodology of determining the income investment or the income generating, I think was the term used. I think how that is defined as income generating, I think that is something that we need a little more time to work on the language with you.
So how I'm just curious how this would work from sort of the other side. Presumably a business that goes in there is going to generate revenue. You're requesting that it generates revenue. How are we going to define specifically for the city?
Well, I think if we're creating jobs, right, we should seek to integrate those jobs into the larger regional economy. And I think we're seeing a lot of businesses and municipalities that ring the city currently that are engaging in growing operations, referring to marijuana specifically here and, just talking out loud. Having a business that processes in a space like that, I think would integrate into the regional economy in a way that would benefit all of those businesses and make sense for the city's workforce, particularly because we are located very close to the intersection of 87 and 84, and we are right on the riverfront. So I think that this is an exciting and good project, right? This is being developed on a brownfield that is currently fallow, as you point out. It does integrate into pedestrian infrastructure. I believe it is on a bus route. These are all really tremendous things. And as you mentioned, it does fall in line with the kind of financial assistance that we provide on a per-job basis. But I think there can be a little bit more work done here. And I think with 4 new board members, I think maybe it is best to table this to the next meeting so we can maybe discuss with agency council what that might look like.
Okay. Is everyone in favor of, well, so how do I propose that? Everyone in favor of tabling?
Tabling. And have to take a vote.
I will, do I ask for a resolution for that? Or is this a straw poll?
It's a resolution, first,
Resolution.
second, and then a
Do I have
vote.
somebody who is proposing a resolution to table this motion?
If I could make one more point just before you vote on that. I understand and I'm listening to the conversation, the idea of possibly the site being a processing facility of some sort. I would caution the board that with that comes 2 issues, and it becomes more back to the municipal services part. Is there enough water? Is there enough sewer capacity? The site already has some water capacity issues associated with it. Sewer-wise, we went through a whole environmental process, not thinking about the site and not analyzing the site for a processing facility that would be a high water user or a high sewer generator. And I'm not so sure whether it may not be able to support the kind of thing that you're thinking about.
Well, additionally, don't you have to get a special license? New York State doesn't just give out processing license for...
I really doubt that processing would be able to go on this site, and it's...
Are you proposing that we don't approve them if they can't be a processing site?
No, certainly not. I think we just had 4 members come on the board tonight, right? I think that if you're asking for $4 million in taxpayer subsidies, I think it behooves the agency as a fully constituted board to consider that financial assistance package, right? And I think that, I think it's a benefit that you're asking of the city in a warehouse that's built on spec with a very uncertain back end. I think what I'm proposing is simply trying to work through what that back end might look like. I understand that's the nature of building something on spec, is that you build it and then they will come. And I don't think that tabling this to the next meeting is going to prevent anybody from coming should the financial assistance package be approved.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to table. Can I entertain a
Both.
motion to table both resolutions?
Both 04 and 05.
To entertain a motion to table both 04 and 05 until next meeting, with the understanding that there will be discussions between our attorney and the applicant.
I move to table resolutions 04 and 05 until such time that the IDA shall next meet.
You call a roll call, or I just do a...
Second, you need a second.
I can second.
Christina Amato,
Yes.
Gregory Nato,
Yes.
Michael Neppel,
Yes.
Alexandra Church,
Yes.
Vicky Anna Demora,
Yes.
and Sharonda Powell. So let's just go over the next steps then. So we'll reach out to the board and then possibly by the November meeting.
Right, and then I would just note for the board that I am away in November, so David will be here for the November meeting and walk you through that.
Which is November 18th, by the way.
Do you want to jump back to, before we get into old business, the interim housekeeping, or is that something you believe we should also potentially table? Do you have a suggestion?
I think we should move ahead with that piece of the housekeeping.
this resolution. So on the housekeeping resolution is the executive director and staff, so this is this non-pro-tunc? Because we have already signed their employment agreements?
So yes. So the employment agreements are in place. The housekeeping right now is really just to appoint, to confirm those appointments and then to appoint the officers of the agency. I think Mike already requested that the committee assignments be postponed until next month or even December.
Okay.
Which is appropriate to do it in December. That's your annual meeting. The audit really doesn't get going until December. The governance, there really are no governance issues right now, and the Finance Committee have already approved what's the bank accounts and the payments that have been done through the summer. What you need to do, what I would recommend that you do tonight, is at least appoint a treasurer, because you don't have one, and you should have a treasurer to review the monthly reports, the monthly bank reports, and payments. And so the next month the treasurer can report what's happened for October.
So in the past, Cher has emailed, we will do this, I guess, publicly. Is anyone interested in being the treasurer?
I'll be the treasurer.
Be the treasurer, okay. Do we currently have a secretary, correct? Gregory?
Greg is secretary.
Would anybody like to challenge that, or Gregory, are you okay continuing as the secretary?
I'm fine continuing.
Anybody have opinion about secretary position? No? Okay. So we have 2 vice chairs currently and no chairperson. Are there any opinions to either of that? Currently, Gregory and I sit as co-vice chairs.
I'd be fine to step down as vice chair.
Okay. Okay.
No, I appreciate both of your expertise as longtime board members. I think you've done a great job in these positions. Would be grateful, I know as a new board member, if you continue to serve in them.
Is it possible that we continue to serve as co-vice chairs until we get to a further date where maybe we've settled into our positions, as long as we have a treasurer and secretary?
It's unusual, but I think the statute requires a treasurer and secretary.
Okay.
And you can decide on the chairs or vice chairs as you deem in your own, your own opinions.
Okay. Would you be willing to
I'm
do that?
happy as long as you have. I'm happy as long as you have a treasurer and secretary.
Are you guys satisfied that we elect a treasurer and a secretary, and that Gregory and I remain co-vice chairs? Is that okay? Okay, wonderful. Is there anything else in this resolution that we have to address? We've already addressed Cher and Adriana. We'll address the committees at a later date, and we basically are just appointing a treasurer, because Gregory is already the secretary.
And you're confirming the vice chair and the secretary.
Okay, wonderful. I request a motion to approve Resolution 2024-10-21-01 as was just discussed. You need me to say confirming Gregory as secretary, Vicky as treasurer, remaining Gregory and myself, Christina, as co-vice chairs, and appointing Cher and Adriana for their next term.
So moved.
Thank you, Ally. I appreciate that. Second?
Second. Mike.
Thank you, Mike. Roll call?
Christina Amato,
Yes.
Gregory Nato,
Yes.
Michael Knuppel,
Yes.
Alexandra Church,
Yes.
Vicky Anna Demora,
Yes.
and Sharonda Powell.
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm going to bring us to old business, which I believe, thank you for being patient. I offer no disrespect, but I have to run to the ladies' room quick. feel free to get started. I'll be right back.
I need the mic. Wonderful. Thank you.
Well, can I just start off by saying we invited you here because Philippe has an application with the IDA that was approved, and a lot of things have changed since then. We were hoping to have you up for some considerations tonight, but being that it is a new board and we're not voting on anything, I thought it was good for him to just come introduce what was approved in the past, what has changed, and what he is suggesting or asking for the future. And then that way we have a base to move forward for future meetings. So, yeah, go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Cher. My name's Philippe Pierre. This is my partner, Charlie Hubner. We're presenting 104 Washington Street, which is right around the corner from Washington's headquarters. The project is the result of a successful RFP from the Newburgh Community Land Bank in 2021. At that time, we proposed mixed-use affordable housing on the site, and we were able to get approval from ARC, zoning, planning, for 28 units of affordable housing and about 3,000 square feet of commercial space. We were also induced by the IDA at that time for a pilot, the mortgage recording tax, and the sales tax. So the project was all buttoned up, ready to go. Kind of during COVID, as we got the approvals, the costs for the project, once it was bid out, changed dramatically, and essentially the project was stalled. To revive the project, we applied for a number of funding sources, and most recently in June we were awarded $3 million from the Empire State Development Fund as part of the Momentum Fund initiative, which is really about getting projects that are shovel-ready up and going. We also received funding from HCR, Orange County Home, and a private impact investor. And this is just kind of as we were trying to get the project reconstituted after the setbacks of rising inflation and rising interest rates. The new project to qualify for the Momentum Fund, as we understood the fund's requirements, was that we provide more commercial component to the project. And so previously we had 28 units with 3,000 square feet of commercial space. Today we're proposing 14 units of affordable housing with 8,000 square feet of commercial space. So less housing, more commercial, same footprint. The apartments are significantly larger, with more 2 bedrooms and 1 bedrooms, whereas before they were really kind of more micro units, which is helpful but serves a different purpose. And as you see here, the affordable housing breakdown is really trying to hit the 60% AMI and 50% AMI. More than 50% of the project is 60% AMI or lower. It's our understanding that, the project submitted an application at the time. We paid a $28,000 fee to the IDA. we closed on a pilot and a lease agreement and all of the ancillary legal documents. That was a lot of paperwork, i.e. lawyer fees, to get to that point. And so we're here today ready kind of with this project that's substantially the same but also different. There are, the numbers have changed, some dates have changed, but essentially the funding is there and we're ready to go, and we're asking for a pilot. As Andrew really did a great job, I thought, explaining how the affordability is 30 years. And that's the revenue side of the equation. And so it's really important that the expense side of the equation match. That's one of the basic accounting principles, is matching revenue and expenses, right? And so that's why in our application today, we're asking for a 30-year pilot to match the affordability. And that's kind of that last section there where I'm just kind of got that little bar graph just showing how important that is to the project. The lenders need that 30-year period. We have submitted the project to MRB, which is your outside consulting agency. We're confident that the cost-benefit analysis and the test of reasonableness will be positive based on their reports of other projects and what our ask is relative to those. So in context of the other projects that you're considering, this appears to be reasonable, and that outside counsel will demonstrate that. We're confident. I guess it's a question of process that we need to clarify, just with regards to the fee and the amount of, legal fees and legal work that needs to go back into this project. We've already done so much of it. And we're just weary of spending another $50,000 just to basically change a couple numbers. So obviously there's a lot to consider in terms of what the benefits of this project are to this community, and we're confident that the report will demonstrate that in our favor. And yeah, we just want you guys to be excited about infill development. It's not quite as large as some of the other projects that were presented this evening, but this is the little engine that could. There's a lot of people who want this project to happen. It's been the source of many dreams, mine included. And it can be built. It can be built, in March. We just kind of need your help. We were supposed to be before the ARC last week. There wasn't a quorum, so we're back next week, I believe. We have zoning, and planning will come kind of after that, as we're kind of circling the wagons on kind of this change, I guess, to the project. But the footprint, which was the concern years ago, I guess I can say, was the size of the project. I think now that's less of a concern now that there's been more development in the city of Newburgh, but it's no bigger than it was at the time. So we're confident with regards to ARC. So that's a lot of me talking. Yes. Uh-huh.
Is this going to be across the street from the church?
Yeah, exactly. It's where that fence.
Right here?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to go, it's not that wide, but it's kind of deep.
Bob, do you guys want to speak to fees? I don't know that.
So when this new application came in, our recommendation was that it be considered a new project because it was substantially different than what the board had previously approved. There were a lot of advantages to this project, but from a commercial aspect, certainly more jobs than what had been considered back 3 or 4 years ago. But to me, and to us rather, it's a fundamentally new application that would require a new public hearing and a new consideration if there's a deviation from the pilot, from your UTEP, which for 30 years would be a deviation. That said, Philippe is correct that he did pay an agency fee. It's certainly within the purview of the agency to collect a new fee or to waive that fee. That would be a decision made upon the approving resolution. As far as our fees are concerned, we did discount the fees at your request. If you remember the last time, we brought it down fairly substantially. But understand that I know it's a matter of opinion, but because your margins are tight and we like to be accommodating, rather than do an entire new set of documents, we would try and accommodate and do an amended and restatement of those documents as much as possible. I don't think that makes sense on the pilot, because I think it would confuse not necessarily the current assessor, but future assessors. So I think the recommendation would be to cancel that pilot and then do a brand new pilot. But certainly the lease is already in effect. We could amend and restate the leases that are there. The project benefit agreement, again, that should also be abandoned, terminated, and a new one in its place. And the recapture for the sales tax, because again, otherwise I think it just gets confusing for people. I mean, I like to do things so that if someone 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 30 years from now, and I definitely won't be here, were to pick up the document, that they understand what terms are and what the relationship is and what the documents are. So I think we can save some fees there for you, and then it's up to the agency upon the approving if you waive the closing fee, another closing fee or not. But it is a new project, so that would be up to you to consider at that time.
Thanks, Bob.
Okay.
I will opine on that just briefly, and we've come across this a few times before. We are in the business of trying to incentivize jobs and business. I do appreciate the change in more commercial, of course. To Bob's point, we have to go back through the process because it is a new application, but I do not believe in nickel and diming our developers who are trying to create projects out of otherwise very difficult projects at pencil. And if the rest of the board is amenable, I would be in favor of waiving those fees, understanding that the papers that have to be produced, the documents that have to be produced for a new project have to be produced, but what we can help with, I would hope, everybody's interested in making sure something happens here.
I appreciate that. I'm sorry?
These are going to be the exact jobs, right? Once this is all
Yeah, that's the idea.
commercial space?
Yeah, that's the idea, yeah. Yeah, so we've got an ice cream production facility. We've got a co-working space. I don't know if you know that place, Wireworks on South William Street. They have a co-working space there. The same operator that was there is no longer there and is looking to reestablish themselves in Newburgh. They have a co-working space in Beacon and I think one in Albany as well. So they're an experienced operator and they do great work. They actually have an outpost on Carpenter and Broadway. And they're looking to kind of come a little bit closer to downtown Newburgh and expand. And then there'll be an office suite that's just be pretty small, but will be for maybe a community organization or a small business of some type.
So can you give us an idea of how many jobs would be in the ice cream production facility?
In general...
And is there like a super in the building?
Yeah, there'll be at least a job for the building. Okay. In the ice cream facility, I think in our application it was 2 to 3, and for co-working, I believe what was
I think we have about 20 possible seats for members to be in the co-working facility. I also think the third-party consultant is going to review our numbers, and that's a more objective answer than the one we'll provide today. So they'll be able to tell you if our numbers are off, and I think we have an opportunity, if they tell us, oh, you're way off, to adjust those before you see them. So by the time you review them, they've been vetted by the third party. I think it's great you're working with a third party because Philippe and I can guess all day, but we're not economic forecasters, and so that'll help answer that question. But for now, we're looking at about 20 seats, and that's based on a 100 square foot per user metric and 30% space for common area.
And to clarify to your point, we also like working with a third-party consultant because they're an expert.
Yeah.
And as much experience as we collectively have, it's very nice for somebody else to be the backstop on that information.
Yeah, absolutely.
That professionally does this all day long.
Yeah,
so.
that's great.
Thank you. So we're not being asked, obviously, to vote on anything. You guys are just presenting.
Just presenting.
We're going to get more information through the test of reasonableness and everything else, and you will come back to see us.
That's right. So everything's with the consultant. You couldn't consider a public hearing until you have the report. You'll have that for November, and we can vote in December, right?
Well, just make sure. You amended your application the last time. So
Right.
per
So-
Bob's request now, I need you to
A whole new, yep.
new everything, new document. And then once I have that, then we'll talk to Michael Indolo, who will run the reports. And then once I have both of those things, then we'll do a public hearing resolution here before the board, if you do that in time before November 18th.
Well, and tip of the hat to Cher, who's just so helpful in general. So, and Bob, you too. Thanks. Any other questions?
So I sort of gave my opinion of what I thought of the fees. Do you guys want to give your feedback just so that they have some more information? I obviously represent my opinion, but not everyone's.
So, just a question. So, I mean, we have to pay Michael Mbolo's group, so it would be...
Let me fill you in a little bit. So when we do a test of reasonableness, a cost-benefit analysis, or any fees that the agency incurs, including our attorney's fees, they pay for it. And so that's where it gets interesting. He pays for his attorney's fees, and he also pays for our attorney's fees. That's for all projects. And so he's coming here saying he's already done that once. What do I have to do again? He paid a closing fee of $28,000 for the last pilot. He's basically saying, do I have to pay $28,000 again, depending on what the number is? The other thing is
That's not, those aren't
Sorry.
separate fees.
So
Those are fees to us.
The $28,000 is not a direct cost, so to speak.
Right. So typically, I'll just jump in. Typically, IDAs rely on project applicants to create fees so that the agency can pay director and pay its fees on a going basis. There's an application fee, which for this agency is $1,000. So anyone who submits an application has to pay $1,000. That's changed over time. Agency, application fees 25 years ago were $250. Other agencies require the payment of $1,000 plus an initial payment of X to pay the attorney's fees to do the resolutions and the hearings and the initial stuff. What we do is when we get when Cher shares an application, we send out a retainer letter to the applicant advising them that we represent the agency and we're required to do that, but they're required to pay our fees. And in that letter, which I share with the director, I give them an hourly fee, which is a reduced hourly fee based on our municipal rate, not our standard hourly fee, and then also what we project to be the range of what our fees will be. And depending on the project, those fees are typically within a range of $15,000 to $25,000 all in for everything, attending meetings here, attending the public hearing and all of that, and doing all the closing documents, and sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more. The Foundry was a unique project. Those fees were much higher because there were a lot of issues regarding the Foundry project, including what do you do with a condominium declaration that has now been deemed abandoned by the Attorney General, and their attorney hadn't looked at that, and we had not looked at that, so that those fees were higher because of that. I think your fees in total with the reduction for us were probably around 17-ish, something like that. And so what I'm proposing would be, he would pay the extra for an amendment, not redrafting everything, because I think we could probably do that and keep it as lean as possible for you. And maybe your attorney can do some of that drafting, although you're paying her, so I don't know if there's a benefit there or not. That $28,000 was the closing fee. So after, when we get to a closing, your document, your application says you're entitled to a closing fee based on the total amount of the project cost. In this case, it was $28,000. He's submitting a new application. What he's asking for is, I've already paid that once. I couldn't get the benefit. I'm putting words in your mouth. I couldn't get the benefit because I couldn't get financing. They couldn't get the financing that they needed to move forward. You now have that commitment, right?
The $28,000 though is paid to the IDA, isn't to compensate.
Right.
consultants.
Including MRB groups, which I can see from the financials.
They get paid
right, but those would be paid independently of that. Okay,
right. And
understood.
They also pay for your publication costs to put a notice in the newspaper, the cost of the transcript, because court reporter is $400, $500, $600 plus or minus. He has to pay all that. In addition, they have to put money up, which I forget if you did or not, for the local labor.
No, we didn't have that.
You didn't have it then.
We didn't have it then.
So you have to put money up at closing for the local labor monitor that would then be available going forward.
And just to tell you, those cost-benefit analysis and test of reasonableness cost about $12,000 each time it's. Oh, you see it there. Okay, every time it's done. So he's already agreed to shell that out now for this part.
Shelling it out. But yeah, the 28 is essentially a windfall to the IDA, and so.
Well, we won't call it a windfall because it does pay salary, but I understand the concept, and I would be comfortable with that as well.
Well, I'm sure we'll cross that bridge when we get there, and obviously we have a new application to submit. So thank you for your consideration. Glad we were able to put this top of mind, and we should be hearing more about this in the next couple of months. And any other questions?
Congratulations to your Momentum grant.
Oh, thank you. The city, thank you to the city, the executive office and the mayor were instrumental in that, and the counties. Everybody's really just done a lot to make this happen. So, thank you so much.
Do we have any other comments for old business? Anything else?
I just have a quick. So this is the second 30-year proposal in my tenure. So it was interesting, at least hearing about what Ulster County or Kingston. I'm sorry, I'll look on the sheet that was provided. But I mean, long term, maybe looking at a housing UTEP is something. Do you guys see these more? Have you considered that? And again, that would be new business, and we can talk about it next month if everyone's tired.
That's a really quick answer I can give you. We, over the past year, engaged MRB to rewrite our UTEP for us, and that kind of got on pause. And so if that's something you all are willing to re-engage again, then now that we have a new board, obviously that's the reason why it was paused, but now that we have a functioning board, then they're ready to continue that conversation tomorrow. I just need direction from you on where you want to go with that UTEP, but the board previously was fully aware that there were some deficiencies in the UTEP and we could make it better, and so that's why we engaged MRB, and I think I sent a copy of that engagement letter to all of you. So they're just kind of waiting to hear back on what direction you would like to go with that conversation.
I think this is an important conversation for us, and our previous board kind of went around this. There has been a lot of publicity and a lot of political speaking towards what IDAs cover and what they should not. We have at least one good senator who is very against IDAs taking on housing. IDAs were not originally proposed to the housing authorities. And the original UTEP was considered to really address commercial tax ratables and jobs. We have deviated from the UTEP to approve housing like with the Foundry in the past, that really demonstrated that it was very unique and very important to its district. It then, though, became a little bit of a gray area because we have so many neighborhoods here and so many buildings can argue deviation because they are an important contributor to their district. So we really have to consider, we've also spoken with Bob and with other IDA consultants about what's happened with other cities like New Rochelle or Albany that very much encouraged housing through their IDAs. And what has happened, it hasn't actually happened as beneficially as they would have liked. And so I think it's an important conversation for us to have. It is a very hot topic, obviously, housing right now, and we do need to address our UTEP. There are certain agencies, as Bob can tell you, who don't address housing and who leave housing to other authorities. There are certain agencies who will address housing in terms of their commercial portion and incentivize the commercial portion of these mixed-use projects. We have to be, as you know, very cognizant of the kind of projects that Newburgh can attract and the best way to sort of incentivize them, but also adhere to what an IDA is supposed to do, which is create jobs. And most of these housing projects create 1 or 2 jobs for a very large benefit, IDA benefit, whereas other projects that are more commercial produce a lot of jobs for the benefit that they're asking. So I think that that's a bigger conversation, and I think we should definitely address that in terms of sort of what the community needs, how the IDA should interact with them, and if we, what our changing sort of purview would be with that.
Yeah, and also what other options they have. I mean, the 2 that were presented today, I think, would qualify for state housing finance law pilots. So to know the difference long term. We don't have to get into it tonight, but I think understanding our role in all of that is important.
And I also, just as a point, wanted to comment. You had said something during one of our applications that I think is really important, and we were constantly reminding each other. The applicants that come to us have to go through planning board, have to go through zoning, have to go through all of these other agencies, and have to get opinions from the planning board on massing and use and all of that. They come to us, and of course we all as residents care and want to know what's going into these places or what they look like or things like that. But we also have to remember that we're an IDA, and our state mandated purview is to create jobs and commercial tax ratables. And we all know, because we live here, that can be done in spades. There is plenty of room for a lot of commercial business here, and we would like to continue to entice them to come to us and to help encourage them. Do we want to try to be everything to everyone? To your point, are there other agencies that they can go to for the housing portion or for other portions? Yes, maybe, and maybe we can very strongly beef up the commercial portion and the job aspects and try to continue to entertain that. So I agree. I think it needs a conversation. With that said, is there any other questions, anything else anyone wants to address? I will take a motion for the adjournment of the meeting.
I move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Gregory. Do we have a second?
Did someone have a comment? No?
Do we have, can we do that in the last few minutes, take comments?
Sure.
We have 2 previous board members
I
and another.
don't take my word. That's up to you guys. That's not my decision.
We're not going to stay here for another half hour. If you guys would like to make comments, you were board members just recently. If you would like to comment, I think that that's appropriate.
test. Okay.
Yeah,
Good. So I'm Yanni Yap Pearson, and I served on the IDA from April for 2 years. Okay. I recently resigned at the end of before we took our summer break. The reason why I resigned is because there was an impression among some city councilmen that there was a non-collaborative spirit of IDA. I have talked to city council members and assured them that we were doing everything under our purview to move the Armory into the ownership of the city, and that we were not willing to do illegal things to make that happen. And so there was nothing non-collaborative about it, because as IDA, we are primarily mandated by state-regulated agencies, not not the municipality, but the state. ABO is a state regulating entity. So I just invite you all to think about that as you sit as city employees, also serving on this board that was an independent citizens and volunteer review. I have concerns that your critical thinking may not always be accepted when you work for an employer that you are accountable to.
Hold on one second.
That's what I'm going to say.
First of all, this is inappropriate. Okay?
Well, I was
This is an
invited to make a
inappropriate
comment.
Use of the board's time.
I was invited to make a comment, and so I'm
You
complete with
absolutely
my
were.
comment.
I'm taking
That is
issue with
my
the content
concern.
of your statement. The appointment of city employees is specifically contemplated in the state statute. So let's be very clear about that. Okay? I greatly appreciate your service on the board. I respect your service on the board. I respect the former chair's service on the board. I think the IDA did great work. I think it is totally within the purview of the appointing authority to change members or appoint new members when vacancies are created, specifically contemplated in the state statute for city employees to serve on an IDA. Just want to clarify that point. Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Mike was first and Ali was second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.